राम को सुनेंगे आज चैप्टर 3 के बारे में। स्वाति,
स्लाइड लगा दो। गुड मॉर्निंग एवरीवन, सुप्रभात। Let us take a few deep breaths. Eyes closed. I sit comfortably in order to descend profoundly within myself. In my hand, I hold a luminous thread which guides me so that I can recover all that I have lost. I focus on my breath, breathing in, breathing out. Another deep breath in and out. And I now activate the Krishna energy within me. This state of consciousness already exists within me. I take another long, slow, deep breath in. Hold it for a moment and then slowly exhale. With every inhalation, the tension in my body is slowly getting released, and I gradually relax more and more deeply with each breath. I take another long, slow, deep breath in, emptying my lungs completely with the out breath.
So I think you need to unmute yourself.
To the top of my head and visualize the silver white light of the divine touching my forehead, which is relaxed. I relax all the muscles in my eyes and behind my eyes. A wave of relaxation is now beginning to flow down my forehead. As it flows down, my cheeks and jaw soften. And if I find my jaws tensed, I open my mouth a little to let go of all the tension. Now this peaceful feeling flows down my neck and deep into the muscles in my shoulders, soothing them, releasing them. I breathe in and out again. This peaceful feeling flows down through my arms, relaxing and soothing all the way to the tips of my fingers. As the body relaxes, my mind relaxes, thoughts become less frequent. Now the peaceful sensation flows down my chest and stomach. I watch this area gently rise and fall as I breathe, slowly and deeply, soothing and relaxing. I now turn my attention to my back and feel this relaxing sensation flow all the way down my spine. This feeling now flows forward, relaxing my sacred zone, hips and thighs. All the muscles in these parts of the body are becoming loose and relaxed. As it flows down my knees and calves, relax. I let my ankles relax and I completely relax my feet on the ground. The entire body is soft, calm, and relaxed. As I breathe in, I visualize myself going down a spiral staircase. I am still holding the thread that symbolizes the energy of the divine. Going down the stairs, I feel a soothing energy in my stomach, in my emotions. I keep climbing down into the interiors of my inner world. I follow this guiding thread, which leads me to rediscover the center of my being, the archives of my past lives. I breathe in and out. I go deeper and descend into my unconscious, which becomes conscious. It is an encounter of the sun and the moon. During this descent, signs and symbols appear which tell my story. Now I find myself in front of a labyrinth. I am gently led into the maze, and I suddenly realize there is no way out, and I am told that I have to give back the money that through ignorance I had taken, even though it did not belong to me. And I learned to make restitution, to give back. Suddenly, a man appears. I give him his dues, and he disappears. Then the way opens for me once again. I can continue still, guided by the luminous thread. I walk for some time. Once again, I am stopped in front of a wall on which an enormous heart is drawn. An inscription attracts my attention. No need to take. Love is to be received. My heart opens and the wall disappears. I can continue. Once again, a huge rock blocks my path. A deformed, distorted creature that vampirizes others' energy appears before me to set me free of its energetic hold over me. I breathe in and breathe out the divine energy, and it disappears. The path is clear. I continue on my path, guided by the thread. This luminous thread brings me intuitions and understandings, and I notice packages, presents, people, and I find lost and stolen objects once again. Now it is my turn to be given back what was taken from me. For the rest of the meditation, I breathe in and out in a natural rhythm the sacred name Krishna, 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 Krishna. I let go of the images, if any. I rub my palms, put them on my eyes. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Coming back to the here and now, relaxed and rejuvenated. Welcome back.
Yes, Ram, over to you.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Krishna and ask him to talk to us. First of all, Swati, that was absolutely divine. Good morning, Namaskara, and welcome to this third chapter of a very interesting chapter that we're going to go through today. We've been on this discovery of Swadharma, and on Saturday and on Friday when we started this journey, we talked about the different kinds of experiences that Krishna is going to take us through. And today it is entirely about the yoga of action, as to why should we actually get into action and what do we need to do about the kind of action that we need to go through. The chapter begins with Arjuna's questioning. And this is something which is very interesting in the Bhagavad Gita. If you recall, in the first chapter and even in the second chapter, it's a very belligerent Arjuna who says, I will not fight. typically in our day-to-day language, आप जो भी कुछ करना है कर लो, मैं झगड़ा नहीं करूँगा. And then you can slowly start seeing the transformation of Arjuna as the Gita unfolds. Heart of hearts, he is still the Sakha of Krishna. He is Krishna's favorite. And a little later when we go deeper into the Bhagavad Gita, we will realize that Krishna says that I actually am Arjuna, among the Pandavas. So Arjuna now wonders, and he asks Krishna a question at the beginning of the chapter. He says, if the knowledge of being a Sthita Prajna is so important, Krishna, then why get into action at all? Okay, what is the point of taking this particular action? And that too, you're asking me to do something that I'm not very happy about. I'm very confused. Okay, can you tell me what to do? And there are so many times in our lives that we get to this particular position that, look, I'm confused. Should I do this? Should I not do this? What is the kind of action that I need to take? What is the kind of direction I need to take? And this whole chapter is really, in many ways, answering that very doubt that Arjuna has, that all of us have so many times in life, that you're telling me to do this, but then how am I actually going to go on and do what you want me to do? So we begin today with taking, with the Krishna's words itself. This is verse 3 in the Gita. I've asked Dipti and Srini to help me today. Dipti, are you okay? Are you there? Can you do it, or shall I? I don't think you're the co-host. Okay, I will share the screen. Okay, I will share it. Don't worry. Yeah, 1 minute.
You want me to share?
Yeah, just 1 minute. I will do that. Right. Okay. Srini, will you play that verse for me, please? Chapter 3, verse 3.
3 verse 3.
लोकेऽस्मिन् विविधा निष्ठा पुरा प्रोक्ता मया नघ ज्ञानयोगेन साङ्ख्यानां कर्मयोगेन योगिनाम्.
So Krishna makes this very interesting distinction now. Okay. Now Arjuna's confusion is very normal. I mean, it is something that is going to happen to a lot of us. Because in chapter 2, in verse 31 and verse 39, he urges Arjuna into action. He says, go into war. Don't stop. I mean, you need to take action. And suddenly, if you recall 61, 62, 63, he talks about Sthita Prajna, saying that, you must be a man of equanimity. You must be, must take everything. You must control your senses. You must meditate on me and don't do anything at all. And therefore, Krishna is now making a very interesting distinction. He talks about two things. One is the Jnana Yoga and through Sankhya and Karma Yoga. So what he's saying is very simple. He says, look, Sankhya here is really the way of knowledge. And a person of Sankhya is somebody who's a man of wisdom. He's very contemplative. He can sit down and he can think. And the other is the Karma Yoga and the yogis, So he is making this whole point saying that there are two of these paths that can lead you to enlightenment, towards your Swadharma. Okay? One is the path of knowledge and the other is the path of action. But he's very clear. He says that, look, it is very difficult for people to follow the path of only knowledge. And therefore, we need to follow the path of action. So from verses 4 to 8, he says that, look, you need to perform action and pursue your Swadharma. because that is what you're supposed to be doing. Because if you don't pursue your Swadharma and pursue action, then you're not really going to be getting any particular way. So Srini, can we move on to verse 8, please? I'll move it to 8 if you can play that for me.
8.
यतं कुरु कर्मत्वं कर्मज्ञायो ह्यकर्मणः यात्राभिगते अप्रतिच्छेद कर्मणः.
So see what Krishna is telling us. He's saying, look, you should perform your prescribed duties, since action is far superior to inaction. And therefore, if you cease any activity, then even your body will not be able to maintain itself. And therefore, there are so many times that we go through these motions of performing action. Obviously, our heart is not there, So we are not completely doing justice to ourselves. And this is the whole point of this verse, that if you're going to do something, then throw your heart into that. Okay? Put your skin into that particular game. Otherwise, there is no point in you trying to do something in a half-hearted way. And therefore, he says, look, you must perform. You must be completely absorbed in whatever you're doing. Because this is the whole point, that if you're going to be doing something, then you need to do it in a way that you're truly excited in. So you must perform whatever action according to your Swadharma. And this duvidha that we get into sometimes, that ye kare kya, ye nahi kare kya, this falling between two boats that we get into is very, very disastrous for all of us. And this is a very, very essential point that Krishna is driving through this entire chapter of the Yoga of Action, where he says, look, don't hold back.
काम करो.
I think we need to mute all. Can you just mute?
गीता.
Just one.
जाने मुझे वो Amazon का देखना है.
Yeah, Ram, just unmute yourself. I muted everyone.
All right. Okay. So, wonders of technology. Sometimes, you just have to keep going on that. So, the whole point of this verse is this, that when you want to do action, you have to perform your action towards your Swadharma. You can't hold back. That is not an option that has been given to you. And this is a lesson that Krishna is telling Arjuna at this point of time. Okay? And then he goes on. Srini, can we just play the next verse, please? Okay.
अन्नाद्भवन्ति भूतानि पर्जन्यादन्न सम्भवः यज्ञाद्भवति पर्जन्यः यज्ञकर्म समुद्भवः.
So what happens is that he is now telling us about the fact that we need to perform yajna or sacrifice. Now, from the context of the Bhagavad Gita, when he talks about yajna or sacrifice, it really is to do with the fact that you need to perform those duties that have been prescribed to you. Each one of us has a certain duty to be performed. A chartered accountant has to do his particular duty. A coach has to do his particular duty. Every one of us has to perform those particular prescribed duties from a spirit of sacrifice. And this whole thing up to from verse 10 to 14, he is telling us about how Prajapati, Brahma, actually created this whole mankind with a sacrifice. And the 5 verses from 10 to 14 are where Krishna talks about the fact that we need to do what we need to do because we are completely intertwined with the existence that we are in. Anurag, will you read the Hindi anuvad of this for me?
संपूर्ण प्राणी अन्न से उत्पन्न होते हैं, अन्न वर्षा से होती है, वर्षा यज्ञ से होती है, यज्ञ कर्मों से निष्पन्न होता है, कर्मों को तू वेद से उत्पन्न जान और वेद को अक्षर ब्रह्म से प्रकट हुआ जान, इसलिए वह सर्वव्यापी परमात्मा कर्तव्य कर्म में नित्य प्रतिष्ठित है.
Okay, now look at the interesting thing that he is coming up with right now. Okay, the fact is, look at the ecosystem. If you perform your Swadharma, then the entire ecosystem is nourished properly. The fact is that we subsist on food. Human beings subsist on food. All beings subsist on food. But where does this food come from? This food comes from the fact that when it rains, it performs only that you have. So this whole ecosystem that we are part of is so intertwined, and this is the whole point. That if you perform now, if you come out of, one of the learnings for me from this particular chapter is this: our whole ecosystem is meshed into one another. You can't compartmentalize the ecosystem that we are living in. You can't compartmentalize the fact that you're a professional, you have a certain duty to perform, you have certain customers or clients, you have some services or products that you deliver, you have a family to take care of, you've got a society to take care of. All of this is completely intertwined. And that is the whole point of this verse. That look, we are all part of one whole. And that's what he's trying to explain to us, saying that food comes from rain, rain comes from sacrifice, sacrifice is only comes out of when you perform your prescribed duties. So we can't compartmentalize and say that I'm going to do this, but I'm not going to do that. And that is the whole point of this particular chapter that he talks about. That all the action that we're actually talking about. And then he goes on to talk about how we need to perform action in a completely selfless way. Okay? From verse 16 to 20, he actually talks us about the fact that you need to perform action in a completely selfless way. So how do you perform action? He says you live in the now. Don't perform actions, don't get into this chinta or shoka. Shoka is for the past, chinta is for the future. Don't get into chinta and shoka. Perform all actions as if you're going to be performing it. Perform it in the now. Live in the now. Focus on the action. Focus on the outcome of the action, which is right now. Don't worry about the entire results that we're going to get into or not get into. Results will happen. Results will come. But don't get swayed, or don't let that influence the kind of action that you're going to be taking. And this is a very crucial point that he is making here for us. That the way to perform action, the way that each one of us has to bring ourselves to take the action on a daily basis is this. Live in the now. Don't live in the past. Don't try and live in the future. Both are not going to work. And Swati's beautiful meditation today was just about that, of letting go. Just letting go whatever is there of the past. Figure they're able to do now, then it's going to happen. So we need, the point is that our targets are important, our goals are important. We need to work on that. There is no doubt about that. But the way to take action is what Krishna is trying to explain to us in this particular verse till now. And then he goes on from here and he talks about something very, very interesting. Okay. He goes on to make another very, very interesting point, that sometimes you get overawed by the enormity of the task that you need to perform. And we get, or you get excited about what you may get at the end of the day. You may get overawed, you may get excited, you may get bewildered sometimes. You may get, you may get scared at some point of time. But how do you actually do that, right? And then I will take you to verse 19. Chapter 3, verse 19. Srini, will you play that for me, please? While we're waiting for Anurag to come, see what he is talking about. Give up all attachment. Perform actions as a matter of duty. Okay? And the point that he is trying to make here is very simple. Don't get attached to the fruits. Don't get attached to the future. Don't let the past hold you back. Don't let the future hold on to you. Try and make sure that you perform all the actions that you need to perform right now and here. Okay? So when you do that with efficiency, you will certainly attain the supreme. what is this whole Supreme all about? The Supreme is, yes, a Godhood. Supreme is a Godhead. But the Supreme also is to make sure that you manage to achieve what you want to achieve. What is your Swadharma that you need to be looking at? Anurag, if you're back, will you just read that for us?
Yeah.
Anurag?
हाँ जी, इसलिए तू निरंतर आसक्ति रहित होकर कर्तव्य कर्म का भली भांति आचरण कर, क्योंकि आसक्ति रहित होकर कर्म करता हुआ मनुष्य परमात्मा को प्राप्त हो जाता है.
Okay, so don't get into any attachment for the fruits of the action. Don't get into this whole future. Don't try and get into this anxiety about the future. Try and make sure that whatever you are doing right now, you do it in a way that you are going to be benefiting at this point of time. So this whole focus on the now is what he's looking at. And then he tells us a little later that, look, why should you do all of this? Why should you become an example? Why should you become a lighthouse in many ways when you're performing action? See, sometimes, we inadvertently, what we do is that when we are performing action, and if it is half-hearted.
Co-host, Srini's co-host.
All right, these things happen in
For
life.
this, I don't know what happened.
Not to worry.
Yeah, and
This is his way of telling us, be careful, yeah.
And Ram is host.
Ram, wait a minute. Let me see if it is on Facebook.
It's not on
So,
Facebook.
more importantly, just make me the host so that I can share the screen. You have to enable that multiple participants.
You are already host.
ठीक है. कोई बात नहीं, अनुराग. Not to worry. Okay, are we back?
Yes.
Rini, are you okay?
Yes, I'm all set.
Can you just play that verse again for me, please, so that we can come back?
I'm playing 21.
Yeah, okay. Playing 21?
Yeah, which verse you want me to play?
Yeah, 21 you play.
यद्यदाचरति श्रेष्ठः तत्तदेवेतरो जनः स यत्प्रमाणं कुरुते लोकस्तदनुवर्तते.
Okay. So, why should you perform your action? What is this whole need for us to actually go ahead and do whatever action that we need to be doing? I mean, what's the point of doing everything like this? And this is a very, very important leadership lesson for all of us, wherein he's saying that, look, whatever actions a great person performs, common people will follow. Whatever standards great people set, all the whole world does the same thing. Anurag, will you help me with the अनुवाद?
हाँ जी. श्रेष्ठ मनुष्य जो आचरण करता है, दूसरे मनुष्य वैसा ही आचरण करते हैं. वह जो कुछ प्रमाण देता है, दूसरे मनुष्य उसी के अनुसार आचरण करते हैं.
So this is the point. We need to walk the talk. Okay. So if we are pursuing our Swadharma, and that is making us happy and is making the whole world happy, then obviously you start giving permission to the whole world. On Saturday we talked about this whole concept of inverted paranoid. I think Srini asked me this whole question and said, how do you do that? And I said, you need to become an inverted paranoid. And this is this whole concept of inverted paranoid that Krishna is explaining to us. That if you perform the action the way that you want to perform it, if you pursue your Swadharma in the manner in which you want to do it and make the whole world a happy world, then obviously what you're doing is that you are giving permission now to everybody else in the world to walk the same walk that you're doing. And this is an extremely important verse in the entire context of leadership and the Bhagavad Gita, that we need to perform these actions the way we do it. Look at the whole point that he says, Yad acharati shreshtaha, which means anybody who's a great person. And who is a great person? Someone who's following his or her Swadharma. And when you follow your Swadharma, what you really are doing is that you are giving permission for everybody else to do the same thing. A little later, we don't have that stanza here for you, but a little later he gives his own example from verse 22 to 24, and he says, look, why should I perform my action? Why should I perform my swadharma? Yesterday, I think Ashutosh asked me this question, why did he do what he did? The point is, why should I perform? And he says very clearly that, look, I don't have to do anything. I don't have to prove anything to anybody. In verse 22, if you've got a copy of the Gita, he says, I have nothing to achieve, I have nothing to prove. And yet I perform my swadharma as Krishna. Okay? And this is a huge lesson that all of us have. And especially, you know, I'm seeing so many of us here who are trying to mentor other people, whether it's our employees or our kids or whatever it is. The point is that, you know, this is something that you can never give up. Whatever we are doing is something that we can never give up. We can never hang up our boots because that is not part of your swadharma. You need to continue to keep doing whatever you have to do because that is something that we need to keep doing. Disengagement, according to us, according to Krishna, is not an option for us. We need to continue to pursue that because only then will not only you be performing your swadharma, but you're going to be giving permission to others to perform their swadharma, right? I'll take you on from here into another very, very interesting aspect. When he says that, look, it is only someone who is an ignorant person, okay, who does not do his swadharma. And he says, look, it is only those people who are completely attached to the fruits of their act. And he defines ignorant person also in a very interesting way. He says an ignorant person is one who is completely attached to the fruits of his action and therefore he does not pursue his swadharma. So if you want to pursue your swadharma and you want to become a happy human being, then you've got to perform the actions that you need to do. And when you do that, you become a Shreshta Purush, which is you become a good person, you become a leader. And when you become a leader, then people will start following whatever you're going to be doing. Okay, but there are ways in which we can get detracted from our swadharma, and that is what Krishna talks about in the next verse, which is verse number 27 that we've chosen to you. Will you read this? Will you play this for me, Srini? Will you do the audio? Anurag, will you read that for me?
सबके सब काम प्रकृति के गुण करते हैं, परंतु अहंकार से मोहित अंतःकरण वाला अज्ञानी मनुष्य मैं करता हूं ऐसा मानता है.
So this is the time that we are slowly getting exposed to this whole thing about the gunas, which is made out of the and we will explore this much in a deeper manner a little later. But the three gunas, which is the sattva guna, the rajoguna, and the tamoguna, and he says, look, all the activities that happen are because of the interaction and the interplay of material nature. But the ignorant person, the person who is egoistic, starts thinking that I am the doer. And this is again a very significant point that we need to figure out. That ultimately, when you are doing whatever you need to be doing, you can get into this whole thing that it is I who am doing this, it is I who am achieving everything, it is I who are doing whatever I am doing. Actually, it is not. It is your ego that deludes you to believe that you are the doer. And if you can move away from that, if you can get away from that thinking that I am not the doer, this sense of doership which is holding people back in life. Because when you get into that sense of doership, what happens is that you don't become a person of example that he talked about in the last verse, in verse number 21. So it is only someone who gets completely carried away by which, and he thinks that he is the doer. He starts thinking that because I am the doer, I am getting everything done, but it is not so. And the whole point from verse 27 to almost verse 35, Krishna keeps talking about the fact that Don't allow your senses to dictate this. Don't allow your senses, your triguna, to come in the way of getting you to feel that I am the doer, I am everything, I am the greatest person on earth. Nothing moves if I don't move that. Because that is something that will detract us from the course of our Swadharma. So I'll take you to the next verse that we've chosen for you. Yeah, Srini, will you play that for me?
श्रेयान् स्वधर्मो विगुणः धर्मात् स्वनुष्ठितान् स्वधर्मे निधनं श्रेयः परधर्मो भयावहः।
अच्छी तरह से आचरण किए गए दूसरे के धर्म से गुणहीन लगने वाला अपना स्वधर्म अधिक श्रेष्ठ है। स्वधर्म में तो मरना भी श्रेयकारी है और परधर्म तो भयानक अनुभव ही देगा।
So look at what he's saying. It is better to perform your own duty, even if it has got some amount of faults, than to perform another's duty, though it can be perfect. It is preferable to die while you're discharging your own duty than to follow another's path, because it is fraught with danger. And here is a very, very interesting point in the entire Gita, that look, better is one's own ideal of Swadharma. Don't try and copy somebody else, because when you're going to copy somebody else, it is not going to work. You will always be just a perfect copy. You will never be a bad original. It is better to be a bad original than a perfect copy, because when you're going to be a perfect copy, it's not going to work. And this particular verse teaches us this very, very important point, that look, when you're performing your Swadharma, it is extremely important for us to keep this in mind. Work on it. Don't allow anybody to delude you. Don't allow anybody to come in the way, and don't allow anybody to ask you to walk their path. Their path is their path. Your path is your path. And therefore, walk your path, and walk your path with confidence. Because it is better to pursue your own ideal of Swadharma than pursuing somebody else's ideal of Swadharma, because that is his Swadharma or her Swadharma and not yours. And therefore, make sure that when you're doing this, follow this particular path of your own Swadharma, because this is so very important to us in life. There are times when we get swayed, we get carried away, we get torn, saying, but this is what I want to do, this is what I want to do. And let me share a thought with you here. There are so many of these young people who Dipti and I keep meeting on a regular basis, who come to us and say, but I didn't want to do this, but I'm doing it now. There are so many times you hear of a kid who's dropping out of engineering in the 3rd year or the 4th year. He's right in dropping out, but what a waste of a seat. What a waste of resources. There was somebody else who may have wanted to be an engineer who's not getting that opportunity to be an engineer. And what a tragedy that is going to be. So let us not try and push people because we want them to live our dream. Let us not make that mistake. We try and do this with kids. We try and get our children to live our dream because we've not been able to live our own dream. Allow them to pursue their own Swadharma. Give them that particular freedom. And this is Krishna's message to all of us. That look, live your own Swadharma. It is better to lead life according to your own ideal of perfection rather than somebody else's ideal of perfection. And this is a very, very important verse in the entire Gita, because this is a great teaching for all of us, especially we who have been leaders in life. Our followers will never be the same. Our employees will never be like us. Nobody can clone you in life. That is a fact of life. Nobody is going to be as good as you are. But is it possible for us to encourage people to be as good as they can ever be? Motivate them, coach them into that. So this is a great lesson, for instance, in coaching that Srini and I continue to do. Srini, we'll move on to the next verse, which is verse number 38.
धूमेनाव्रियते वह्निः यथादर्शो मलेन च यथोल्बेनावृतो गर्भः तथा तेनेदमावृतम्.
So, what is the problem? Okay. Now, when Arjuna says, okay, all this is fine, in verse number 36, after 35, Arjuna says, okay, great, Krishna, you're doing all this fantastic, but why are you pushing me to do something which is against my will? I mean, all this time Arjuna said, Krishna, I don't want to fight. And now why are you pushing me to fight? So, but he couches it very interestingly. He says, look, how does a man commit sin? Maybe even against his own will. How does he do that? Because, deep there's still this lurking fear that Arjuna has, that if I kill my relatives, will I be incurring sin? Okay? And Krishna answers this from, verse 37 to 41, all the way to 41. He talks about the entire interplay between desire, anger, and greed. Okay? And he says that, look, just like the fire is covered by smoke, or a mirror is masked by dust, or the embryo is concealed by the womb, similarly, one's knowledge gets shrouded by desire. Okay? Anurag, will you read the Hindi anuvad for me, please?
जैसे धुएं से आग, धूल से दर्पण और जेर से घर ढके होते हैं, ऐसे ही उस काम के द्वारा यह ज्ञान विवेक ढका हुआ है.
Okay? So, we talked last time very briefly about the 6 enemies that are there. Okay, the 6 enemies very clearly listed out in the Bhagavatam. In the Gita, he just talks about 3, but he doesn't talk about all the 6. And what are these 6? And it's important for us to spend a little time on them. Whether it is Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsarya, which is desire, which is Kama, anger, which is Krodha, greed, which is Lobha, Moha, which is attachment, arrogance, which is Mada or pride, and Matsarya, which is jealousy. And he very clearly is saying that, look, our knowledge gets completely shrouded by desire. Because when we know what has to be done, but the problem is that when desire comes in and it brings all the other 5 with him, and when these 5 guys enter with desire, then we are running into trouble in terms of figuring out what we need to do and what is our swadharma. So here is a very, very important point. Even Krishna acknowledges this fact that, look, it is very difficult to control our desires. It is not easy to do so. It's not the easiest thing on earth to control your desire. Okay? But the fact is that if we don't do this, our knowledge. So here is the challenge that all of us will have when we are pursuing our swadharma and getting onto the path of the happiness that we want to get into. It is going to happen on a moment to moment basis, that we will get so satisfied by the outcomes that we are getting from the actions that you take, that you start getting attached to those outcomes. And once you start getting attached to those outcomes, then you start getting more and you start desiring more and more and more of the manifestations of the outcomes, till that becomes a way of life itself. So as a leader of the organization, you go there, you do something, and everybody praises you. Now you've done an action, and that action has resulted in some amount of manifestation. What are the manifestations of the action? It could be somebody praising you, or it could be somebody criticizing you, or it could be somebody saying, oh my God, you're the best singer, or somebody saying you're the best cook, or somebody saying you're the best cook. People would love to praise. These are all the manifestations of the outcome. But a point of time comes when the manifestations become more important than the outcome itself. So if there is a singer who sings a great song, what does the singer do? The singer is expressing herself or himself at that point of time. Obviously, when that expression is good, there will be a certain amount of praise that will happen. There will be a certain amount of applause that will happen. But when that applause itself, when the reason to do your action becomes the applause, then you're going to get into this trouble. That your desire now will start clouding your knowledge. And this is a very, very important point that Krishna is making, saying, Arjuna, the reason why you're not able to move out is because you think that the manifestation of the action is more important than the manifestation of the outcome is more important than the outcome itself. Don't worry about it. At this point of time, your job is to sing a song. At this point of time, your job is to write something. At this point of time, your job is to make a presentation. Don't worry about it. And even if you do a good job, and there are certain manifestations of that particular outcome, don't let desire come in for those manifestations. Now, the manifestations, as I said, can be positive or it can be negative. Especially when they're positive, what happens is that if it gets negative, you get into fear, and we'll deal with it in a while. But when it gets into positive, you start desiring those praises. You start desiring those things that people are talking about. Okay? It's like when we were in Roundtable, we would go build a school. And, the school would be a great school that you had built. Okay? Take my friends from Surat. They built so many schools, 23, 24 schools. And Anurag has just committed that he's going to build one more school this year. But the point is that when we are building the school, we know that the school will have a great outcome. And what is the outcome? There are many, many outcomes that will happen in that school. One of the main outcomes that will happen in this school, one of the main fruits that will happen is that you will have happy kids sitting there, playing, enjoying themselves and learning. And you'll see their smiles. But what will also happen is that somebody like me will go there and look at the school and say, oh my God, you guys have built such a beautiful school. Now, this is a manifestation of that. When that manifestation is driven by desire, that becomes part of your desire, then obviously your actions start getting clouded and you're not able to focus on the outcomes. So how do you do that? And Krishna takes us into that in the next particular verse. Srini, if you'll help me, please. Verse number 42. You need to unmute, Srini.
Anasastu indriyani paranyahu indriyebhyah param manaha manasastu para buddhihi yo buddhe paratastu saha.
Anurag, will you read that and then we'll...
जी, इंद्रियों को स्थूल शरीर से परम श्रेष्ठ, सबल, प्रकाशक, व्यापक तथा सूक्ष्म कहते हैं। इंद्रियों से परम मन है, मन से भी परम बुद्धि है, और जो बुद्धि से भी परम है वह काम है।
So, look at what he's saying. Okay, he says the senses are superior to the gross body, but superior to the senses is the mind. But the mind, beyond the mind is the intellect. And where does the intellect lie? The intellect lies in your heart. And this is why I keep saying you need to make your mind a slave of the heart. You need to bring your mind under the control of the heart, because the heart will tell you to do what is right. The mind will tell you to do what is correct. The mind will tell you to do what is correct. The heart will tell you to do what is right. And in this fight between the right and the correct, it is always better to go with what is right than what is correct. You would have all heard of the statement saying, are you being politically correct? The point with being politically correct is this, that when you want to do something which is correct, you are trying, the mind will tell you, will this guy get angry? Will this guy be pleased? Will this guy be happy? Will this guy be unhappy? Will this guy be sad? Will this guy be, overjoyed? And therefore the mind will constantly keep telling you, do what is correct. But the heart will tell you to do what is right, because the heart, which is what he's saying, the soul, okay, very clearly is going to tell you what is right to do as far as your Swadharma is concerned. Srini, we don't have that verse on slide, but can you please play 43 also for me, please? The last verse in this particular chapter.
एवं बुद्धेः परं बुद्ध्वा संस्तभ्यात्मानमात्मना जहि शत्रुं महाबाहो कामरूपं दुरासदम्.
Krishna is telling Arjuna, look, Arjuna, it is not easy. This want to control your desire, your senses is not easy. Okay? And therefore you need to kill this desire that is there. It is an enemy that you have. You need to kill it. And how do you do it is what he is sharing with us in this particular verse. When he says, make your mind a slave of your heart. Only then will you be able to work on your Swadharma. And that is the whole key to happiness, ladies and gentlemen. That if we were to figure out a way of listening to what is in our heart, because that is what is your Swadharma. Because happiness is something that comes from within. It comes from within because as I said some time back, happiness is having what you want. And therefore, when you make your mind a slave of your heart, then you will be able to control this whole desire. Otherwise, these desires, these manifestations of the outcomes will become more important than anything else. So with this, we finish chapter 3, and I apologize for whatever little technical glitches that we've had, but I guess that's Krishna's way of telling us, I'm there with you. Don't worry. You perform your action, and don't worry about the glitches that will happen along the way. So we'll stop this slide share now, and we'll open it up to any questions, any discussions that we may have.
Ram, can I ask a question, please?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Okay, I'm Parag Vora. I just asked you a question last time as well. I just want to know, in the verse 35, you just mentioned, saying that let people do what they want to do. Okay, as long as they're not hurting anyone. Now, in all of this, when Krishna is asking Arjuna to fight, at some point in time, do you feel that he's kind of imposing himself on Arjuna? Because it's a little bit of that contradiction where at some point in time he says, you do what you want to do.
Arjuna himself asks this question in verse 36. He says, why are you pushing me against doing what I want?
Right.
What I think is the right thing to do.
Correct.
That's why he answers this. He says, where are you coming from? The fact that you think it's a sin, where is this sin coming from? It is your desire that is clouding your judgment, Arjuna. Because what you think is a sin is not really a sin. Okay? You believe that it is a sin to do whatever you're doing. That is not so. Okay? And that is why this whole explanation saying that, look, you need to control your desires. Don't allow the manifestations of your outcomes, which in your mind will be about sin, about not sin, etc. Don't allow that. Don't allow that to take place. You perform whatever action you're supposed to be doing, because what is your ideal of perfection? Your ideal of perfection is obviously that you're a warrior. You need to fight for dharma. Okay? And therefore, even in the context of our day-to-day life, this is the challenge that all of us have. Okay? We are sometimes confused, like Arjuna is, in terms of what do we need to be doing. Okay? And let us remove the manifestations of the outcome of our actions on our Swadharma. Let's negate that, but let's go ahead and do what we are supposed to be doing. Right?
Ram, can I ask?
So
Please, Ashutosh, go ahead.
Yeah, see, the verse number 35, isn't it a bit confusing in the sense that, we should follow the good guna or good character of other people, and that is where we'll need the leaders, and whose dharma we can follow. And what here it says, that your own swadharma is much better even if it is of lower category as compared to the others whose dharma is much better. So isn't it a bit confusing over there? Verse number 35.
No, it isn't at all. Very good question, Ashutosh. It is not. You see, what he's trying to tell us here is simple. He says, look, you pursue your own swadharma, your own ideal of perfection, whatever it is that you want to pursue in life, whatever you are meant to pursue in life, please pursue it. Don't just blindly copy something else. Don't just blindly go and do something that somebody else is asking you to do. Okay? That is the whole context that he is talking about, right? Where does this come from? Let me tell you, where does this come from? I don't know how many of you are aware. I mean, you know, if you read the Mahabharata and the various interpretations of the Mahabharata, apparently just before the war starts, Dhritarashtra sends a message to Arjuna. And the message is very interesting. The message is that how can you kill your own elders? Isn't it a sin? So there is an input that has been given to this young man. I mean, he's not young. I mean, when the Mahabharata took place, Arjuna was almost over 80, 85. So, you know, this message has gone to him saying that, look, here is what you're looking at. And that is where Arjuna is coming from. Okay? And therefore, Krishna's whole point to Arjuna here is in that context, Ashutosh.
Okay.
You know, saying that, look, don't do that. But forget that. Let's look at it from today's perspective. You know, from our perspective right now, I think is what we need to look at the Bhagavad Gita from. That there are so many times that we will keep getting inputs in life that you must do like this, you must do like that. Okay? And it is not going to work. Like for instance, you know, whenever I teach entrepreneurship, so people will call me and say, you know, you're such a successful guy, why don't you share your success story with us? And I'll say, I'll tell you what I'd like to share with you. You know, success, great. You're seeing the manifestations of my success right now. But you have not seen those days when I used to sit in front of the phone waiting for the phone to ring because I wanted a client. Okay? Now that is also something that you need to look at. So don't try and blindly copy somebody else's life. You pursue your own, you go through your own examples in life. And that is what this whole 35 is all about.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So, does it mean in just one statement from everything that's going? Because I feel this 35 is somewhere, it's a little, you know, as very rightly said by the gentleman, that it's a little confusing. Does it mean that you keep pursuing towards your goal as long as you're not hurting anyone and you're just going with it? In one statement, would it mean that you'd rather be an extraordinary failure than an ordinary success?
Absolutely. You see, there is a very famous statement made by a very famous actor in Karnataka called Dr. Rajkumar. Okay, and he was an iconic actor here in Kannada films. And the story goes that once he went, you know, he was a good singer too. Okay, so once he went to some college and there was this kid who came up there and who sang, and he sang very well, and he copied him exactly like the way he sang. And at the end of it, Dr. Rajkumar went up and said, you know, I didn't like your singing. And everybody was shocked. He said, "Arey boss, this guy is like, you know, the best Dr. Rajkumar copy." He said, "Why are you copying me here? Why don't you sing on your own? Why don't you give this song your own way of singing? Why would you want to be always in life known as a great copy of Dr. Rajkumar? Why don't you become a great singer yourself?" And that young man went on actually, and, you know, he's now breaking all the charts. He's become a singer on his own right. And, you know, he's doing extremely well in life. Okay. That's the whole point. That, you know, it is, see, it is easy to become, it is easy to live as per somebody else's thought. Okay. But it is better to be a bad copy than to be it is better to be a bad original than to be a great copy. You will always be a copy in life, yeah. Now just imagine if you take all our singers, right? And we are aware of the fact that for a long time, if you see the Hindi film industry, there were very few people who sang because everybody wanted to sing like a particular person. But it was only when the whole thing opened up that you're getting such a beautiful array of singers right now. All of them completely different. No? Isn't it? So, and they're expressing themselves so beautifully. I mean, if you take a look at the world of art, whether it is painting or whether it is sculpture, there are so many different kinds of painters that are there right now, and and that's what makes them so valued. Right? If everybody is going to copy a Hussein, which is right behind me, you'll only be a copy, no? You'll never know how good you are in life if you don't pursue your own Swadharma. Okay?
So in fact, what you are referring to the singers and all this particular statement was being made by you. You always said that as a human being till I die, I would rather keep trying. And as he very rightly said, and what you just kind of said too, that I would rather be an extraordinary failure than be an ordinary success. It's there in his autobiography, which is why I just kind of connected the two.
Yes, sir. Any other observations?
Ram, if I have a clarification from last chapter. So if there is no other question from this session, I would like to ask that.
Please.
You talked about results and outcome. Okay, in the last chapter, and you asked all of us to distinguish between the two. I just need little more clarification on that.
So, every action, Srini, will have a certain amount of action, will have a certain amount of outcome. Okay? A series of outcomes becomes a result. Are you with me?
Yeah.
A series of outcomes becomes a result, Srini. If you're building a school right now, okay? So you need to get the foundation right, and then you need to get the walls right, and then you need to get the plastering done, then you need to get the painting done, then you need to get the roofing done. You need to do all of this, because then you'll get a great school. Am I right? So if you were to focus on these outcomes one after the other, after the other, after the other, you will get the result that you want, which is what he mentioned, I think, in the last chapter in 42 or so. 47, of course, he talks about, not getting attached to the fruits of your action. Okay, but in 41 or 42, he talks about the fact that, yes, you need to have a goal. That is there. That school building will come up. And, it is going to look as beautiful as anything can be. But a series of outcomes, Srini, is the final result.
Okay.
So at the moment, just focus on that particular, don't jump the gun. Okay? That's his message to Arjuna right now.
Yeah. I think I'm clear now. Thank you.
Yeah, Ram, I have a question.
Please.
In one of the texts, it says that we are not the doers. Doer is some higher power. So, I mean, if that is so, what is the, what is the essence of our existence then? If something else is guiding and making us do all the things, then what is the purpose of our existence or actions?
So, two ways of looking at this, Vikrant. One way of looking at this entire thing is that, look, yes, there is a supreme power, there is a supreme force in the universe. You want to call it God, you want to call it nature, you want to call it the way it's done, the order. There is some other manifestation up there that is influencing you to act in a particular way and get things done. Okay, that's one of the interpretations. So if that is so, then why do anything at all? Just wait for that guy to do it, no?
Yes.
Then you have no role in life, isn't it?
Hmm.
Right? But that is the whole point of this chapter, no? That look, while there may be a divine, you call it divinity, you call it God, you call it a supreme force, you call it nature, you call it whatever you want. Okay? Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, if you still don't perform those actions that you need to do, how will you even live? You can't. So therefore he says, look, while there is this thing, but when you're performing those actions and when those manifestations are happening and when those results are coming, don't get carried away that I am the doer. Don't get carried away by that thought that I am the doer, I am doing everything, it is only me who's big. So don't allow your ego to come in. That's why he uses that lovely word there saying ahankar. Don't allow that ego to come in, that if it is not for me, then there is nothing here. That is the whole point. That there is this manifestation, there is some divine power, there is a God, there is a Godhead that will be driving things for us. There is no doubt about that. Okay? And what does he direct you on? He directs you onto your Swadharma. Okay? And that's what he says, when you're pursuing your Swadharma, don't get into this doership. Okay? You pursue your Swadharma, because then what will happen is that you're making this distinction between what you're doing, what outcomes you're getting from the actions that you perform, what results that you get. But the minute that ahankar comes in, that doership comes in, then it will cloud your intelligence and not allow you to do what you're supposed to be doing. That's the point, Vikrant. It's not that, you wait. That's why he says, no, that look, where you need food. Where are you going to get your food from? If you don't perform sacrifice. Sacrifice, yagna is, those days it was sacrifice, which was yagna, which was a great way of doing things. Okay. So if you don't perform that action, then there'll be no rain. If there is no rain, there'll be no food. You can't just wait for him in a defeatist way. Okay. Saying, God, give me everything. It's not going to, unless you do things also and perform your action, you're not going to get ultimately what you want.
But in life, if you see, there are people who work very hard and people who don't do so much of hard work, but still they get a lot of things. So does it mean the life is driven by karma, or is it driven by destiny, or is it a combination of both?
It is a combination of both, Vikrant. It is a combination of both. Okay. The point is that, you can work extremely hard at getting something in life. Okay. And despite the best of your efforts, you don't get it sometimes. Okay. I think it is good at that point of time to go back and revisit the way you have approached that particular task and figure out why you're not getting what you're not getting. Okay. Now, what happens sometimes is that if you're not getting what you want, but if you don't examine why you're not getting what you'll never be able to move forward. Problem is that people who don't consistently get, sometimes, believe me, of course, in colloquial Mumbai, there is a very interesting statement saying, iska to bad luck bhi kharab hai, right? So the point is that is there. Sometimes it takes a long time, and you really wonder why things are not working the way they ought to work. Okay, so it is a combination of karma, 100%. It is a combination of karma, destiny, and the work that you put in. Okay, but in the Gita, it is very clear that you have to perform your action, and you keep performing your action. You will get what you want at the end of the day.
No, yeah, thanks for the answer. I was reading about Gautam Buddha, the story of Gautam Buddha, and it says when he was about to be born, it was predicted that he is going to be a great person who's going to rule the world with his teachings. And that's what the Pandits predicted. Then it looks like it's all destined. If it was predicted at his birth that he's going to be a great person, then where does karma comes into picture? It was pre-designed.
It is your accumulated karma, Vikrant. Last time we explored this. It is your accumulated karma that will determine what happens in the here and after. As much as what happens to you now, also what happens in the here and after. Okay? I think Swati put out a beautiful explanation in the group that whatever you do today will determine what will happen in the here and after. Okay? And you would have heard of these rare stories of child prodigies, okay? Of people who are who are so young, and yet they really are. Now, where does that come from? Okay? The other day I heard a 3-year-old boy or a 4-year-old boy. Okay, somebody sent me this clip, and he was reciting the verses of the Bhagavad Gita with perfect ucharana. I mean, even after so many years of trying to read the Gita, my pronunciation is not there. Though, mind you, I've learned Sanskrit in school. Where does this young boy get it there? He's just 3-4 years old. There's no way on earth that, somebody could have hardwired his brain when he was in the womb and, given him some stuff. And he's like that. Okay, you tell him, okay, chapter 18, verse 72, and he's there. So how does this happen? So sometimes you wonder that, look, this is karma. This is your accumulated karma that you've done. It is just that some people, I think, in chapter 2 itself, he mentions this, or in one of the chapters, he mentions that Krishna tells Arjuna that, look, I remember, you don't. Okay? I am aware of what happened in the past and what will happen in the future. The point is that you don't know that. You may not know this, but the fact is that, yes, it is there.
Thank you, Ram.
Reshma, are you asking a question? You need to unmute yourself.
Sorry. So, Ramji, I'm like kind of trying to help myself to do all my duties, whatever best in my capacity I can do. But somehow now I have reached the point that I have come to this conclusion that I think gratitude is something which makes things more peaceful within myself. So I don't get results and answers immediately to whatever I'm doing, because it will take that period of time. But I'm still extremely gratitude every single day for so much more that I'm bestowed than what I can think of. I can have at the moment.
Absolutely.
So is that the right path that I am in?
Absolutely, Reshma. One of the interpretations actually of chapter of this verse 43 that 42 and 43 is that, okay, that he actually talks about the fact that, look, in verse 43, Krishna actually tells us that, look, desire is the gateway to the other 5 things. Okay, so how do you actually overcome this? Okay, and the message that he gives us is very, very important to us, that you have to do 3 things on a daily basis. That's his message to us. And maybe we can close with that. The first is that you've got to be grateful and thankful for what you have. Okay? Whatever you've got, whatever you've achieved yesterday, you've got to be grateful and thankful for that. Okay? There may be 100 things that you've not achieved yesterday. There are 100 things that are still on your to-do list. That's perfectly all right. But even if you've completed one of those 100, please be grateful for those. Please be grateful for that one thing that you've achieved yesterday. Work on the other 99 that you've not got, that you've not achieved yesterday. Work on it. But today, be grateful for that. That's one lesson that we can learn from this verse number 43. The second, okay, be fearless in doing the difficult tasks. You see, his whole message here is the same thing. There is this whole American concept saying, eat the frog. Okay? Which means that, the very, very interesting, Westerners have a beautiful way of making money from all our basic concepts. So the concept is that get up in the morning and eat a frog. Every day in the morning, get up, take one frog from the roadside, take a glass of water and, just eat it off. Is there anything worse than that in life? No. So Krishna's message is simple. Do the most difficult things now, yaar. Start your day and say, which is the most difficult thing on my to-do list right now? Let me first strike that thing off my to-do list at this point of time. Okay? And the third thing that he says is that be completely humble. Because if you're not going to be humble in life, whether it is somebody who's superior to you, whether it is somebody who's lower than you in position, it doesn't matter. Okay? So 3 very important lessons in that verse, Reshma. One is to be grateful for what you achieved yesterday, work on what you've not today. No doubt about that. 2, make sure that you're fearless in doing whatever action that you need to take. Don't have any fear in this. Okay? And the 3rd, the point of humility. A little later, we will see in one of the chapters when he talks about all the different qualities that you need to succeed. And he starts, the first quality that he talks is fearlessness. And the last quality that he talks about is humility. You know? Gratitude, fearlessness, and humility. All of this is a fantastic combination for you to for you to achieve whatever you want to achieve. If you're doing it on a daily basis, Reshu, it's a fantastic thing to do.
Trying to. Thank you, Ram. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any more questions? Ram?
Shall we close the session today, Anurag?
Yes, Ram.
Can we do a small prayer and close the...
Yes, please.
Can we do a small prayer and close the session? Okay? Because this is the 3rd chapter of the Gita and, Krishna is teaching us. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Thank you, Ramji. Thank you, Anurag.
Thank you so much. So we'll see you tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ram.
Thank you.
Thank you all for joining today. See you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anurag. Thank you, Ramji.
Thank you, guys.
Namaskar. Namaskar.